If you're wanting to adopt a wild Mustang from the Bureau of Land Management's online corral, this video is for you, as we're going to dive into all sorts of tips and tricks that will be helpful for you as you participate in the internet auction. Today I have my good friend Marina from Gypsy Equestrian here to have a conversation with me about the internet adoption. Now, Marina is the absolute queen of equestrian comedy, and she also features wild Mustangs on her channel. And it's really through our mutual passion for wild Mustangs that our friendship has developed. You'll hear from Marina in a moment. So, a little background for those of you who are new to the Mustang world. Every year, thousands of wild Mustangs are gathered by the government and placed into private care through the Wild Horse and Burro Adoption Program. Now, the internet adoption through the online corral is a one-week event and one of several ways to adopt a wild Mustang. You can also go to a permanent corral or attend one of the special adoption events held at various locations and times throughout the year. Today, we're going to focus our conversation on the internet auction. So, Marina, why would someone participate in the internet adoption, especially when they can't see the horse beforehand?
I feel like there's a lot of reasons. Like, first off, okay, if you're looking just to get a Mustang, location, if you're not near a long-term holding facility, it can be kind of tricky. So the internet adoption is nice because oftentimes they'll bring, horses to satellite events, because that's where you picked up Libby. But then also movement, like when you go to an in-person adoption event, they have, I think it's 10 to 12 Mustangs all in the same tiny pen. I think it's in 400, maybe 500 square feet. So it is hard to see them walk, trot, canter because they're hiding a lot of times. So movement would be another reason if you want to see the horse. Also conformation, you can kind of study it a little bit longer. And then height is listed on the internet adoption where it's not in real life, even though you can guesstimate. Mm-hmm. And then there's also just more of a selection, honestly. At any given in-person event, you'll see maybe 50 adult Mustangs. And the IA can have hundreds. So you have a bigger, selection. So I think those are the main reasons why I would personally choose to bid in an internet adoption.
Right. And adding on to that for myself, I live in New England and it's a very long drive to any of these events. And it's really nice knowing beforehand that I'm going to be going to this event to pick up a horse that I already know I want versus driving all the way there and then not having the selection I thought I would and just having to pick something that maybe I wouldn't have normally picked because I drove all the way there. So it's just nice knowing ahead of time. We both have bid in internet adoptions and we thought we would share that experience with you. So we're just going to quickly share our internet adoption stories just so you can kind of get a feel for what the internet adoption was like. I'll go first and share with my experience. So my very first Mustang was Libby. She was a 2-year-old from Green Mountain, and I originally went into that internet adoption bidding on this beautiful gray mare. And I was actually winning this mare, and right up until 30 minutes before the auction ended, I got into a bidding war with someone. And I was on the edge of my seat. I kept, bidding up, getting outbid, and finally, I was winning, and then 6 o'clock hit, which was the end time for the internet adoption, and that was really exciting. I felt this wave of relief go over me, and then I see myself get outbid, and what had happened was the time on my computer was actually off from the time that the Bureau of Land Management had, and I saw that there was 10 seconds. So sad. There was 10 seconds left, so I wasn't sure what the person had bid, and I didn't want to risk not winning a horse. So I went over to my favorites page and I quickly put in a bid, 3 seconds left, and that's how I won Libby. So that
is so stressful.
It was so stressful. Marina, you had a interesting adoption story as well. Why don't you share that?
Yeah, okay, so I won Zara kind of she was like a backup win. I was originally bidding on this gorgeous tricolor Pinto 2-year-old who is just totally 100% everything I want in a horse, dream horse. And so I had a pretty high budget for her because it was going to be a personal horse that I was going to keep. And I ended up, that auction in the last couple minutes ended up going, I think there were 2 minutes left and it went down. The server went down. And so I wasn't winning the bid when that happened. I wasn't winning it, but a lot of people complained, and so they ended up a week later giving people 24 hours to rebid. But she was already, higher than I, wanted to pay at that point. And so I ended up bidding on Zara as a project. And so that's how I ended up getting Zara. But yeah, that's the Zara story. I just looked at that point. I knew I wasn't going to win like my dream horse. And so I looked up, there were 3 different ones that were 15 hands or over. And she was the one I ended up winning with my budget for a project.
And so Zara had gone to someone else originally. And
yeah, they thought they had won her.
Right.
And that auction was a mess because everybody thought they won a certain horse, and then, so many complaints came in. A week later, they find out you actually didn't win it. We have to redo it. And that was hard.
Right. And it's
for a lot of people.
It's so hard because during these internet adoptions, you just get so emotionally invested in these horses, and you fall in love with them, and you haven't even met them.
Yeah.
So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. Okay, so now that you've heard both of our adoption stories, we thought we would pull together our top tips and tricks for you if you're considering bidding in an internet adoption. We've created these lists on our own, and we're going to ping pong back and forth and see what we've come up with. Marina, why don't you kick us off with one of your tips?
Ooh, okay. My first tip would be that you know what you're looking for before you even log on to look at the internet adoption, because it is very easy to look at the selection of horses. Like say there's 100 more likely. You're gonna find your dream horse. I guarantee it, even if it looks a lot different than what your actual dream horse is, because you're just looking at these horses and you're like, oh, which one would I like out of these? Which that's fine if you're looking for a project, but if you're looking for a horse that you want to keep, forever, or even you have a specific type of horse that you're looking for, I would write that down. So like know what you're looking for, like what you want before you log on, because Britta and I both know we have found our dream horse every single time. It's dangerous. So
it's dangerous, so dangerous.
Yeah. So know what you want.
All right. One of my tips is do your application early. The internet adoption is stressful no matter how it goes, and if you get your application early, that's at least one step out of the way. If you do your application during the internet adoption, which is 1 week, they usually do approve it before the end. I put my application in the day before the event and got it approved 2 days later, so the auction was already in session, but I was still able to put my bids in at the end and win a horse.
Okay, so one of my tips would be not to fall in love. I'm speaking from experience because I think I fell in love with that tricolored pinto, and I can't even tell you. My heart is still broken almost a year later. But what I mean by that is just to realize it is an auction. Okay, so it isn't like you didn't necessarily, just because you want that horse or you have a big budget, you don't necessarily win it. It could come down to the clock or, an internet glitch or something like that. So don't get your heart too set. Have like 5 to 10 horses that you like. Especially if you're looking for a project. It's different for your personal horse, but if you're looking for a project, have a couple. Kind of like how Britta said that she had her favorites. So don't just fall in love with one and then, be like, oh, I'm gonna win it because I have a big budget. I totally thought that with the tricolored pinto, and I'm still heartbroken. So, unless you have a big, huge budget and perfect internet connection, that things can still happen.
Right. One of my next tips is do your research. Study the horses beforehand, send it to friends, pick and save your favorites. I always start with a really broad favorites list. So if I even remotely like a horse, I plop it into my favorites, and then I know I can do my next layer, and when I go through and I watch all the videos, I eliminate further horses, and I just narrow down my list until it's a little bit more manageable. And then I have a pretty hefty favorites list. Like Marina said, being able to have several to choose from is just really helpful, especially if your favorites gets a little over your budget. That's helpful to have fallback horses.
Okay, so ping-ponging off of what Britta just said with asking, sending these horses to your friends, one of my points was asking for feedback from friends or knowledgeable people in the Mustang community. And this is so important, especially if you don't know what to look for with behavior or conformation. And I personally did send, I sent that tricolored Pinto to so many people. And they, there were some things that they were like, watch out for. But when I sent Zara to quite a few people, and unfortunately, nobody noticed that Zara had a lump between her chest. No one noticed it. I didn't notice it. And so when she unloaded off the trailer, I was like, what is that? And I'm like, this must be new. This must be a new injury. And then looking back at her auction video, you can actually see it. And so I wish I would have sent that. I mean, everything happens for a reason, but I wish I would have sent that to more people and somebody would have caught it because, that, who knows? We still don't know what that is, but it could be an issue. So that's like another reason. Ask for feedback from people who are going to not just look at the pretty face and go, oh, she's cute and tall. They'll see those body flaws. So,
and it's like not something that you have in your mind going in to be looking for. Like, let's look for a bump on her chest. It's not really something that you're thinking actively in the moment about. So having fresh sets of eyes really does help that. One of my tips and tricks is don't overlook the horses with bad headshots, because some of these facilities really do a terrible job at getting photos of horses, and their pictures are very unflattering. And other facilities do an amazing job, and they have these beautiful headshots, and that just really helps in people being attracted to the horse. So I often go through, and if I see a bad headshot, I click on it, because that might actually be a real gem waiting to be uncovered. And you might actually get a really gorgeous horse by looking for those bad photos, because other people are overlooking it and not really taking the time to look deeper.
Yeah, that is a good one. Another one is that there are a lot of internet adoptions. I think there's one every other month right now. So if you don't find what you're looking for, or if they don't have the location that you need, just be patient and wait for, 2 more months. It's going to come up and they'll start loading horses early, and you can start seeing, maybe have different HMAs and different types of horses. There are a lot. There's a lot of Mustangs. There's a lot of internet adoptions. And so, you don't have to panic if you don't find what you're looking for in one auction. Like in one auction, I think it was last maybe fall, there were like 50 horses. And then the next auction, there were like 300. And when there are,
Yes.
It was like, what? That's crazy. But like when there were 50, a lot of the horses were going for a lot of money. And then when there were 300, horses, gorgeous, big, beautiful horses are going for almost nothing. Remember that auction, Britta?
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
I do, yeah.
what?
I know.
We were both like, why are we not bidding? Because you could get
right? Kicking yourself, yeah.
gorgeous colors. But, anyways, everything happens for a reason. But
All right, so my next tip is bid on the horses you want the most first, because you are approved for whatever number is listed. When you get approved, you may be approved for, say, 2 horses. That means you can only be actively bidding on 2 at the same time. Now, if you get outbid, you can change your bid to another horse, but you can only be actively winning 2 at the same time. So make sure that you're actually wanting the horses you're bid. Don't just throw out bids for no reason. Make sure you actually want the horse you're bidding for.
this tip is going to seem silly, but you need to check the location drop-offs, because some internet auctions are, some horses, some places will send to some places and some won't. So just because you see one horse can go like all over the US does not mean that the next horse you look at can be dropped off anywhere either, because they just have different, I don't know how it works, but they have different routes and stuff. So some places will only, it's pick up there and that's it. Or if it's a horse at a certain age, like a young horse, they won't ship them. But so many, there was one auction where a lot of people did not look at the locations, and then they're like, oh no, I'm in New York and this horse has to be picked up in Idaho. And you're like, they want it though. You know, they committed to going and picking up that horse. And so it sounds silly, but make sure you check the location of the pickup.
Right. Yeah. And there could be several factors. This is one that I had on my list as well. There could be several factors. Even, for example, pregnant mares. They may not be willing to ship a pregnant mare, you know, across the country, especially if she's due in the next few months. So things like that can really factor in. Another suggestion is to factor in transportation to your price when you're setting a budget. It's more than just bidding on a horse and paying the cost, but if you're like me, even these satellite pickup sites are a solid 10 hours away. So I either have to pick up the horse on my own with a truck and trailer, which I do not have, or pay a company like Wild Horse Transportation and have them deliver my horse. So in that, there's a lot more expenses than just paying for the horse itself. It can get pretty pricey, so I think that's important to factor in. I know I have a lower budget going in and bidding on horses because I know I do have to pay a lot for transportation as well.
Okay, so one of my tips is to make sure that you are ready for a Mustang before you bid. Now, a lot of people don't do that, and it can work out, but it can be a very stressful process because, some satellite places where you pick up, they don't tell you when the horse will be there. So it could be there in a month, it could be there in 3 months, you don't know. Or you could have a pickup date, and that's a fixed date. Those horses are not going to be able to be there after that weekend of pickup. So if you are like, oh, I think I want to bid in an internet adoption, and then you win a horse and you're like, okay, now I need to get the setup, it can be very stressful. When you order a corral from online, they tell you, 3 to 5 weeks. Yeah, double or triple that. Like every single person's story that I've heard about ordering a corral online, like, the Mustang pens, it's always double or triple the amount of time. So I would just recommend, so that you don't get in a pickle, have your whole setup be fully ready for a Mustang before you even bid, so that you're ready and that it's not a stressful situation, or you don't have to forfeit the horse because you don't have the proper setup for it.
Right. And that's a great point because I had the scheduled date for mine. So I knew exactly when my horses would be in Pennsylvania when I picked up. But your story was different because you got the call saying that, oh, your horse has arrived to this facility ready tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah, come pick her up.
Yeah.
Now. So when I got the call, thankfully I had already, my Mustang pen was already set up. But if she was my first horse, if Zara was my first horse to pick up, I might not have been ready because you just didn't know.
My next tip is to know your personal preference. It can be really hard knowing what strategy to use going into this auction. I think part of it just has to acknowledge yourself and how you work best. Some people I know prefer to set the automatic proxy bid, which is a system where you put in the highest you want to spend on a horse, and it will automatically bid up for you as people bid against you until that certain point. Some people like to just set that and walk away. And other people want to be actively present, such as myself. I wanted to be fully engaged and in bidding wars, and knowing that my priority was to get a horse. I had horses that I wanted to get, but I wasn't particularly married to any one horse. I was constantly changing the horses I was bidding on if I was getting outbid. So that's my preference, but I think you have to know yourself and know which situation is less stressful for you, because it is stressful.
Okay, so one of my tips is kind of silly, but it's their wild horses. Okay, so you are bidding on a wild horse. So a lot of people don't realize that. I think watching Spirit, the cartoon, makes us think that these horses, they'll just have a connection with us and then they're going to take care of us and all that, which okay, great, love it. But at the same time, these are wild horses, so know what you're getting into. And I would recommend, even if you're going to bid on an internet adoption, it would still be good for you to go see wild horses in real life if you have the opportunity, because a lot of people are pretty shocked when they see them, and it's just this fantasy in our brain. But the main thing that I want to talk about with this is that the BLM has restrictions or has specific requirements for the pen, for the trailer, for the setup. And I do see quite a few people trying to cut corners and be like, oh, they're not going to jump. They don't need 6 feet. Yes, they will. They will jump. I have seen it happen multiple times. They will plow through wood. They will, the things that the BLM has set is because they want to protect the horses and the humans. And so do not cut corners. Because these are wild horses, and to protect them and ourselves, we do need to listen to what the requirements are and not cut corners or think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. No, it is. You have to respect the fact that these are wild animals and they do need the proper setup.
And to add on to that, I think there is an application process. You do have to meet these requirements, the fencing, the corral, the trailer, all of that. If you have those basic things, it's very easy to get a wild Mustang, and it's really easy to win a wild Mustang. The hard part is when it comes home. So just because it can be a pretty simple process to win a Mustang, just know that you have a long road ahead of you. I can guarantee you it's not going to go how you think it will go. Okay, my next tip is to not rely solely on the filters. For example, the height of a horse may say it's 14 hands, and if it's a younger horse, there's a chance that the horse is already grown to be taller than that. So if the pictures are available that show the height, often they go into the little chutes and they have the hand measurement behind them. Just make sure you look at that as well, because sometimes the height is not accurate. Also take note of the date the pictures were taken, take note of the date the height was taken, and all those factors, just so you don't overlook a hidden gem.
My next tip is to set a budget. Okay, so if you are going to be getting a project horse, like Britta said, you want to factor in transportation. Also, okay, if you don't have your pin, you're going to have to buy a pin. There's all those things. So if you're getting a project horse, then you definitely want to have a budget, right? And I would be strict with it. And there are so many Mustangs, so you don't need to spend a ton of money on one when you can help other horses find homes, because that's the goal, right? Okay, now on the other side is if you are bidding on a dream horse, throw that budget out the window. Just throw it out the window, because seriously, there are a lot of Mustangs that come around, but I have not seen that tricolored Pinto. I have not seen a horse like her come through. And one of my biggest regrets in my life, seriously guys, is that I did not charge it. Throw that budget out the window, because I think she's a once in a lifetime type of horse. And so, project horse, budget. Dream horse, throw it out the window. Figure out how to pay for it.
Throw it out.
So my bad advice.
If you haven't seen Gypsy Questions' video on bidding in the internet adoption, she has a comedy video on that. Check it out, because it's a funny one.
Nike.
Okay. Yeah, Nike, just do it. All right, my next tip is to not overlook the plain colored horses. I think when you're faced with this vast library, really, or whatever you want to call it, of all these horses and all these options, it's really easy to get greedy and really want those beautiful colored horses. And the reality is, when you take home one of those plain colored horses and, train them, love them, care for them, they really are beautiful animals. They're beautiful in their own way. And I have one, Jager, who is a gorgeous plain bay, and he has the absolute best personality. He's probably my favorite Mustang I've ever had. And he is just a special horse. And there's all kinds of special plain colored horses there. So be sure to not overlook them, because they really can be a gem. And I think it's hard for them to stand out in such a broad scope of colors and markings, but they are beautiful horses too, so just don't forget that and don't overlook them.
Okay, and then my last tip that I have for you guys is just to go with your gut. Okay, sometimes you'll have let's just say you have two horses and they both have, the same conformation, whatever, colors, whatever you want to say, whatever things that are important to you, and you have two side by side, just go with your gut. I feel like your gut, even though we don't know why, I don't really know why I feel this way, but I just do. Oftentimes when you ignore it, you end up regretting it. And I feel like when it comes to the internet adoption, there's only so many things that you can analyze. And then the other thing is just how do you feel? How do you feel when you watch that video? And then you just have to trust yourself and just go with it. So
yeah, it's a good one. Also, to add on to that, it would be a real shame if there was your dream horse there and you lost it for $50. I'm just saying, like Marina said, if it's your dream horse, throw the budget out the window. Don't let $50 hold you back from your dream horse. So, just adding that on.
Yeah.
Okay, my last tip, which I already alluded to in my adoption story, is watch the clock for the internet adoption. Not on your computer, not on your cell phone, not anywhere else. Watch the clock that the Bureau of Land Management has and make sure you win the horse. You'll get a notification. Make sure that you've actually won it before you celebrate, like me. So, I'm still sad about that, but Libby was great. It was good. So those are just some of our tips and tricks. I'm sure there's more, and if you have bid in the internet adoption, can you just comment those down below and just help those who may be thinking about participating in one of these auctions. And if you have a story, go ahead and share that below too. One last suggestion is that if you're serious about adopting a wild Mustang, a great place to start is by joining a Facebook group, such as the Internet Adoption Mustang Facebook group. This is a great place to meet people, share in the excitement, make friends there, and just get the support of this wonderful community. When I went into the Internet Adoption and won my first Mustang, it was really great having Marina here supporting me and encouraging me and just sharing in my excitement, sharing in my nervousness, and it was just helpful to have someone to share this experience with. Neither of us are shopping for Mustangs right now, but we're always window shopping when these internet adoptions come up. Because of that, we thought it would be fun to do a video where we pick out each other's Mustangs. So Marina has that over on her channel. We just filmed that. And we picked out Mustangs for each other and had a competition to see who picked the best.
Okay guys, who do you think wins? Who do you think knows the other person better? Guess you'll have to go watch to find out.
So head on over to Marina's channel to see that video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. And thanks, Marina, for joining.
Yeah, so fun.
Bye, guys.